Okay.
Give me 2 seconds. Let me make sure we're good to go recording. Okay, let me go ahead and click.
Okay, it's open.
Yes, let me make sure we're good to go. Okay. And Esteve, how do you pronounce your last name real quick for all those who are here?
What?
How do you pronounce your last name?
Caballol.
Caballol. Okay. I just want to make sure. All right, everybody. This is Eric Butoni with the Basketball Embassy. I'm proud to present another one of our webinars. We have Coach Esteve Caballol here with us, and he'll be presenting. Presenting player development as well. Is that correct, Esteve?
It's correct.
And if you can, also just reintroduce yourself, and then so everybody, any questions will be, please type them in the Q&As, and I'll get those answers as best we can. And without further ado, Esteve, you're all good to go. I'll be here if you need any help.
Okay, cause he say, my name is Esteve Caballol. I'm professional coach, and now I'm in Spain in Taxi Manresa, ACB, in ACB Cantera League Club, and I'm founder of Atomic Hops Basketball, who you have behind me. So it's a technical skills academy. So today I want to, first of all, I want to give thanks to Coach Lasson to invite me to talk to all the coaches who stay here. Here in Barcelona, it's 12 in the night, it's midnight. So you are in the afternoon, so good afternoon. And same time, thanks to the Basketball Embassy to let me make this experience for the rest of coaches. First, and the second thing, excuse my English. I will try to do it as better I can. I wish I can improve it in future, but now excuse me if my English is not enough good. Today I want to let it clear that all the things that I will explain to you tonight, this afternoon, it's my idea. It's not the correct way maybe for another coaches, but it's my way, and it's a good way because it's a resume about 27 years that I have in experience coaching. So it's a good way for me, and I will try to explain to you. And if when we finish this speaking, you have different items to think about it and can improve these things and can improve your basketball coaching. So I'm really glad for this session. So let me share to you a PowerPoint. It was the first part, so I do it another day last week. So now we begin in the second part. You see okay? I suppose.
Yes,
so,
we do.
Okay. I'm not alone. Okay, fantastic. This is my name. So now we will talk about the way to the highest level, about the coach, about the player. So this is my diagram about these two speakings. So what aspects do you work like a coach with your players in your teams? So today, for example, who is a talent? So I think it's the first question that it's important to make everyone. So who is a talent? For me, a talent is a player who have about these 7 parameters. It's a player who have maybe 3 or maybe 4 of these spaces. So if you see my cursor, so imagine these 7 parameters. So imagine that one player have maybe 3 maybe 4 parameters with a very good development. Okay, but today we will talk about all the players, not only the talent players. So it's important how to develop a talent, but it's more important how to develop the rest of players too, because sometimes we don't know if we have a future talent or not. In the first session I talked last week, I explained about sometimes we lose talents. Why? Because when they are younger, sometimes these areas are not enough full, are a little bit empty, and sometimes they, oh, it's not a good player, it's not a good player, and we don't have time for him, so it's not good. Sometimes it's not good. So now I will explain for everybody, and if some talent grows up to appear, oh, it could be a very good it's good for us. So continue. Which aspects do you work with your teams usually? So sometimes coaches, clubs, schools usually focus only in the 42% of the developed volume of their players. Sometimes works on these 3 parameters. Offense resolution, defensive tactical resolution, so it's 1-1, 2-2, 3-3, 5-on-5, and defense and on offense. And sometimes other coaches includes technical levels, so different skills on shooting, on passing. So I explained in the last season about what it means every space. So imagine what happens here. So there's a lot of clubs, there's a lot of coaches who only develop the 42% of the 100% possible of each players. It's very bad. It's very bad. So, and there are coaches who only think on win, because they have games maybe on Thursday, on Tuesday, and Saturday. So, or maybe 2 or 3 games a week. So they say that they only have time to practice on offense and on defense. And what happened with technical level? So imagine how many players they can lose, that they probably don't arrive to professional because they cannot play the rest of the rest of parameters. There are other coaches and clubs, maybe schools, maybe universities, that they include the physical workout, physical capacities. So there's the possibility to go to the gym and develop jumping, develop muscle, develop agility, resistance, and other physical parameters. So that coaches, that teams arrive maybe the 57% of development of these players. So it's not as good as they can, but it's very normal to do this. It's very, very, very normal. So imagine 57%. 57%, if we imagine that they feel completely every of these 4 parameters. But sometimes it's not possible. So there are parameters who arrive maybe only in the middle. So imagine a lot of space that we don't work with our players. Emotional training increases up to 71% or maybe 85% we work at the physical parameter or not. So imagine coaches who understand that when they have players for a season between his hands, and they understand that they need to work with his players with sacrifice capacity, emotional control, technical level, offensive resolution, defensive tactical resolution, physical capacities, it's probably his team becomes more better than he can imagine. It's not normal. It's not normal. And the last, the 7th parameter, it's physical height. So it does not depend on us. The genetics, we cannot choose this. Maybe the very good clubs, the most important clubs in Europe, maybe FC Barcelona, Real Madrid, and maybe other clubs can pick different players for all around Europe with very good height and very good large arms and very good physical. So it's not normal for a lot of coaches. So it does not depend on us. But the rest of parameters, the other 6, depends on us, and it's our responsibility for the players working on. So for me, my order, which of these parameters are more important for us? For example, for me, the emotional control and sacrifice capacity is the 2 most important parameters in the development of a player. And if it's a talent, it's more important, really more important. Maybe it's the best. It's the most important thing, because all the rest of things, that player are good on shooting, maybe have a very good physique, maybe it's have a good height, maybe it's very good on reading on offense, and it have a good defense. So if it's a talent, if he arrived to pro, it's probably depending on emotional control and sacrifice capacity. So it's our responsibility, make focus with the talents. It's very important to stay with these 2 parameters. For me, the emotional control and sacrifice capacity, it's the basis of everything. It's basis. So I don't know when a player begins to play, maybe in 5 years, 7 years, 8 years. I don't know when a player begins to play basketball, but when he begins, it's very important that the coach he have begins to practice these sets, begins to practice these parameters. Because if the coaches works on this, it's probably we have 10 players who allow us to correct them. I talk with a lot of coaches who explain me problems about their players. Oh, because I have players who don't want to work hard. I have players that sometimes lose his concentration. Oh, I have players that when they are in the game, they lose his mind and begin to shout, begin to scream to referee. So what's the problem? The problem is that player, what happens with his emotional control training when he was younger? What happened? Sometimes the younger teams have younger coaches. And sometimes these younger coaches are not prepared on coaching, or maybe are not prepared on psychological development or emotional training. And the best coaches sometimes go with the best teams. Junior varsity team, seniors, NCAA, college. But when a lot of players arrive to these levels and arrive with not a good attitude, what happened? So imagine the problem begins a little bit. It begins before when they begin. So for me, imagine a pyramid, and in the base of the pyramid there are these emotional control and sacrifice capacity. For example, it's very important how practice this. How we can practice this. How we can coach these things. Oh, it's very important practice emotional control, but how I can do it? So now I will explain different situations and like a brainstorming, like it's ideas for you. So for example, you can make exercise with manage positive and negative emotions. For example, imagine an exercise that if you fail, you have punishments, for example, or if you do it okay, you have water. If not, you don't have water. For example, workouts with emotional goals. For example, we are practicing open zone, and for example, okay, the team who scored 3 baskets in a row, and the other team punishment. Okay, so we stay in the offensive tactical focus, but we have an emotional focus too. Parallel training. For example, we can prepare matched situations. For example, okay, now we are in a game, in the practice. Imagine in the practice we are in a game, and it's 74-64, and the team is losing, still have only 2 minutes to finish the game. Okay, so if don't win, they have punishment, for example. And at the same time, I go to the point guard and I say him, okay, you need to steal 2 balls in these 2 minutes. If you focus, do it. If you don't do it, it's probably your team don't win. So imagine we are putting different emotional goals for the player and for the team, and it's very important that focus becomes real like the game. For example, at the beginning of the season, if we have a meeting with the team and we explain clear the rules that we will have for all the season. For example, every player will arrive on time to warm up alone. 15 minutes before the practice, every player arrives and begin to warm up alone. So it's unnegotiable. So it's like this. And if the rest of team signs or maybe says in verbal or written, approve this, so it's a rule. And it's necessary everybody do it. So other things like, for example, if someone shouts or scream or lose respect for the coach, we'll stay 1 game without play. So it's like this. It's like this. So we stay in emotional control. We are making a real rule with emotional control. And for example, in all the practice, sacrifice is negotiable. Sacrifice is obligated. So if some player don't do this, he's breaking the rule. So we can take decisions about it. It's very important that the player knows that we stay to help him. So one day we can scream him, we can shout him a lot, make a lot of punishments for him. But another day we talk with him and we explain, I do this to help you. I done this to help you. You understand? In this trouble, we go together. You don't go alone. I will stay with you and I will help you to this trouble to be a very good player. So I will stay together you. So it's important to explain the players. It's very important. And make him aware of his achievements. For example, if he gets something very good, it's very important to tell him. And it's very important, same times, be clear about the punishment and if it's appropriate or not. Take care, because sometimes punishment could be good, but sometimes can break the team. So, or can break the players. So take care and put a correct punishment. Okay? So take care about the age and the physical age. Sometimes we have in our hands very strong and tall players, and sometimes we think that it's a big player, but we confuse about his age. No, take care, because maybe it's tall and strong, but he have only 10 years old, and it's very important we talk with him like a child, like a kid of 10 years old. Take care about how explain or how can work the emotional control with that player. Take care about this. Okay, here you have an example. For example, I do this maybe 10 years ago with one team. So it's a scorecard to evaluate, to control emotional parameters. For example, here you can control frustration, injustice, humiliation, team leadership, for example, good example, respect, game tension, flattery. So how can do this? For example, imagine we have all the roster of our players, and in the first day of the week, for example, Monday, so we decide that these players will work on these 5 parameters. For example, player 1, I will stay with him working on frustration. For example, every time he do something, I will say, oh, it's horrible, it's very bad, you are very bad, you are a very bad player. And he repeat and he do it again, and I say, no, it's very bad, you cannot do it better, you cannot do it better. Oh, it's very bad, deception. For example, with another player, we can work on his humiliation. So, for example, when we make the team, I choose him in the last position. Okay, and the last is you. Okay, you go with this team because you are very bad, so stay with this team. And I don't correct him nothing in all the practice, for example. And when we correct something, I say it's not good. I tell it's not good. For example, motivation. We control without saying nothing. I control this player about his motivation in all the practice. If it's a good example of player, for example, if it's a player who goes fast water and comes back fast. If it's a player when I say go, come here, and he comes the first, and when we begins to practice, he begins the first. So a good example, and I can see in all the practice. And for example, team leadership. When I begin to play with the frustration player, and when I stay with the humiliation player for all the practice, it's sometimes necessary in that practice we have a team leadership player. So it's a player who goes to these both players and say, okay, nothing happens, let's go, continue working, let the coach says, you are good, continue playing. So it's very good to work on team leadership. And when we finish the practice, we put red if he cannot pass the challenge, or we can put green if that player passed the challenge. And in the second day, we choose other players, other parameters, and the same. If he get the challenge, on red, on green. If he don't pass the challenge, on red. And day 3, the same. And the day 4, the same. And we can begin to control, and it's possible makes different stats about the evolution of a player about this. For example, in the game, we can focus on, for example, here we have player 1, don't pass the frustration training. So in the game, I will put the same focus, the same goal. And for example, the player number 10, don't pass the frustration. So he have another opportunity in the game. And the injustice, for example, is player number 10, don't pass the injustice in the practice. So now in the game, have the same goal. And it's probably they pass, so it's green, and it's possible they don't pass, so it's red. So imagine we do this for a period of time. 1 week it's not enough, of course, because we cannot play with all the players for maybe more than 3 or 4 times each parameter. So it's necessary, because if not, we cannot evaluate if he makes evolution, if he improves on this parameter. So we need maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks in precision. We cannot, it's very good sometimes. We can do this to detect problems. For example, if we have a problem that one player who don't pass never the injustice, in 3 times he done, so we need to talk with him. And we need to prepare maybe something individual for him. it's the same with frustration. If we have a player, very good player, very good on offense, very good on technical, it's very good on, but he on frustration he's not good. So he always have reds on frustration. So we need to prepare something special for him, a part of the team, individual coaching sessions, you know. So another very good moment to prepare this, maybe it's to prepare a state championship. So in America, it's typical state championship. Okay, so maybe 1 week before, we can begin to press. We begin to press on the practice. We begin to practice strong, and we can put different challenges for the players, because the state championships could be difficult. So, and it's necessary to arrive prepared, not only technical, tactical, and physical. So in his mind too. For example, now I will put different advices about this scorecard. So, for example, we can decide the number of items and what items. For example, in that scorecard, I put 10 different parameters. So you can decide, okay, my team, it's necessary only work on 3: frustration, humility, and leadership and motivation. So you can decide how many, and at the same time, you can decide what items. You can decide for who, which players and which challenges. So, for example, there are challenges that is not necessary for, it depends players. So, and there are players who needs more frustration. So we work on frustration with that player. It's not necessary, maybe justice or maybe other things, team leadership. So it depends. So we can decide about our players, which challenges for each one. For example, for me, it's a very good job for the assistant coach, because it's very difficult to stay focused on every player who needs injustice, or maybe every player who needs a frustration. So stay at the same time, you stay with the goals of the focus of the exercise of the important part of the practice. So sometimes we cannot stay only with the emotional part. So it's a very good job for the coach, for the assistant coach. At the same time, we can empower him in front of the team, so we can decide. We can use the matches as test. For example, you see in my example that sometimes the game could be a very good opportunity to test our players on this emotional. Don't stay only if we win or if we lose. Stay, you are developing players. You are not in front of the team to win only. Oh, I'm the coach of the year because I win 15 wins, 3 loses. Okay, that's good, very good coach. But how many players about this team will arrive to professionals? So medals for coach are not as good as medals for the rest of coaches who get arrive players to professionals. So it's important to think about our players, not only medals and championships. So we can decide who's the protagonist. I explained that before. It's very important detect when a player arrives to the limit. It's very important to take care about this. I talked about this before. So because we can break a player. So imagine we stay working on frustration with the player number 10, with Charles, for example. Charles is very good on frustration, so we stay in this practice working on frustration. Every time he had the ball and dribble, oh, trouble, you lose the ball. And he begins, oh, it's not trouble. Okay, one suicide for this player, change, switch, another player on the curve. So imagine you stay all the practice making him this punishment. So we need to detect in his face, in his expressions, if he begins to be break. So it's necessary stop because he arrived to the limit. and sometimes it's not necessary. So it's very important to detect where player has the limit. And we always, I explained before, we always need a good example player and a team leader player in the practice, because if the practice is strong and there are bad sensations because I'm focusing and very bad on the players. So it's necessary there are players who give them good vibrations to a good balance of the practice. Okay, and it's very, 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 very important. Maybe it's the most important thing that I can advise to you if we do this. So when the practice finish, talk with the players who receive or who practice on these parameters. Talk with him and talk about the challenge. If he passed, if he not, think about the feedback. So reinforce and maybe help him to make the next step, because it's very important that when you finish to talk with this player, maybe at the finish of the practice, or maybe at the beginning of the next practice, when he was more cold, because it's probably he finished very hot and very aggressive about the day. So it's important you detect if it's good idea to talk when the practice finish, or maybe at the beginning of the next. But it's necessary to talk with the player and take conclusions and make a brainstorming about what happened, what can improve, which is the good way, what can I do to help you. Remember, I stay with you to help you to arrive. So in your future career, it's probably you have problems with frustrations, with injustice. So it's necessary, let me help you in this way. So it's very important to talk with players if you practice this emotional part of development of players. Now I will go a little bit fast because it's more clear for coaches, I think. So the third level for me, it's technical level. So it's necessary to work on tactical challenges with resources. So if you don't have a good technical level, it's like go to the war without weapons. So you need technical skills. You need the abilities of technicals. So layups, shooting, dribbling, passing. So it's very necessary. So because if you do this, it's probably you have advantage against the rest of players who often is very good, but they don't score because then they have enough technical skills, high technical level. So it's a very good appointment here that I want to say to you. So the golden age to the motor learning, it's from 8 to 12 years old. So because they are a sponge. So in that moment, all the coaches that have players between 8 and 12 players, it's very important maybe work 60% on technicals, because tacticals, they will have enough time to do this. But the golden age of motor learning, it's from 8 to 12. It not means that nobody can practice technical level more with 15, 16. Of course, technicals, it's necessary. Technical skills, it's necessary all his player life. So in NBA, there are players like Pau Gasol, like Calderon. There are Ricky Rubio, for example, that they improve on technicals when they arrive to the NBA. So you can work all the time, all his career, all his player life can work on technical skills and technical level. But I only say that between 8 and 12, 13, 14, it depends of the maturity. So it's the best age. It's the best age. They are sponges. Believe me. Here I take notes about different technological methodologies. Okay? discovering methodologies, guide technical methodologies, actions, challenges, and indirect learning methodologies. So that there are different ways. There are different ways to practice on technical skills. So, for example, in the United States, it's typical, like impossible, hoops, drink hoops. It's normal make indirect learning methodologies. So, for example, in the East Europe, it's more technical actions repeating for a lot of times. So here in Spain, we have a balance between both extremes. So, for example, for me in Atomic Hoops Basketball, we try to make these three different methodologies of learning technicals. It's important to generate technicals need based on practical situations, because if we generate a technical need, they understand when he can use our technical skill. It's very important, repeat actions for a lot of time in technicals, repeat a lot, but take care, because I always, I hear a lot of times that if you repeat sometimes, maybe if you repeat 100 times a thing, you can be expert in that thing. But if you repeat 100 times a bad thing, you will be expert, but doing bad things. So take care with the bad habits. So it's very important someone take control about the details in technicals. Details sometimes make difference. So now we are in future. So it's very important. The coaches, for example, I'm surprised about young coaches, because they are very good on new technologies. So they use in their practice, they use videos, tablets, mobiles on the court, TVs on the court. So I'm very surprised about young coaches. And of course, I copy this because I think it's very good. I think it's very good when a player see himself. It's better that if you explain. So, for example, in the game, you can cut different clips about layups, for example, and on Monday. So Monday is the day that you can work on technicals. So you can have a little session about 10 minutes with each player, and you explain this clip of videos of the game, explaining about technicals. So it's very good way to improve on this level. So it's the thing that I explained to you. So you can improve technicals of his life. For example, the fourth and the fifth parameter, for me, it's offense and defense tactical resolution. And I put together because they improve together. So if the defense is bad, probably the offense cannot improve. And if the offense is bad, defense probably don't improve too. So it's necessary they go together. So it's important thing that I say. So I think it's the thing. I think are the parameters that all the coaches usually use or usually practice in their practices. So I will don't stay for a lot of time in these parameters. So, for example, it's very important begin with the 1-on-1 and 2-on-2 when they have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. For example, dribble drive, motion exam. For example, it's a very good set. It's a very good set for younger kids. So dribble drive motion, because it's 1-on-1 continuous. And if you are practicing technical skills, like I say, till 8 to 12 years old, we practice 60% of technicals. It's necessary a set where the players can practice and can do it in the game. So, for example, a dribble drive motion, it's very good set, for example, for youngers to develop his dribble, his layups, shootings, all the things like that. And then we can continue with 3-on-3 concepts. So backdoors, cuts, spacings, So we begin with a little bit play without ball. After this, we can begin with the screens. When they have 13, 14, 15 years old, we can begin with screens. Easy screens, maybe screen away, maybe pin down. It depends of the level, maybe ball screen with only one defense, maybe two defense. So follow, switch, under. So it's a good age to begin with these things. And when we arrive to a varsity team, I think with 50 and 60 years old, we begin to play against zones, for example. And more when they are more with more age, maybe 17, 18, 19. If we do this, we practice with all these steps, it's probably they arrive with a lot of concepts and they are prepared to play in ACB. Remember in my first speak last week, I told about Ricky Rubio. Ricky Rubio was with 15 years old. He was prepared to play in ACB league. So it's the second best league in the world. So why? He knows the screening. He knows direct screen. He knows about defense and offense zone. You know, because he probably begin these steps before the rest of players. For example, now continue with physical capacities. So it's the 6th parameter. So take care about this. Many times we want to do weight work with a talented player ahead of the time. So it's a mistake. Take care to develop players when they are growing, when they are when they became tall. So take care, because his intermuscular coordination can have problems. First of all, let them grow up. Let them grow up, and after this, with 17, 18 years old, we can begin to develop his physical capacities. So what can do with that players? We cannot do nothing about physical capacities. No, of course. What can we do? For example, coordination. It's very important, coordination with stairs, with a tennis ball, with the stairs and shoes strings, for example. So with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, it's very important coordination. Coordination. And the second, speed. Intermuscular coordination. So speed, the elasticity and explosive force. So with 11 till 15 years old, it's a good moment to work on elasticity. And we begin to start with weights, because it's very important. We begin to work with light weights in 16 or 17. So sometimes I want to say that it depends of the physical of that player. So for example, Luka Doncic probably begins to play with weights a little bit before, because his constitution permits this. So take care. So it depends of the player. For example, here in the photo, we have Kristaps Porzingis. So now it's in NBA, and look, it's very thin. With 14 years old, he don't play with weights. No. So coordination, elasticity. Remember, Pau Gasol. It's the same. It's the same example. When he arrived to the NBA, he was very thin, very weak to Memphis Grizzlies. So it could be a good moment when he stops to grow up to begin to increase really his hypertrophy muscle. So is that I explained hypertrophic muscle development, maximum 18, 19, 20 more. So there's no problem. Endurance, it's improving in the evolutionary states. So during his ages, for example, 10, 11, 12. So if he practice very good, if the practice are very good prepared, with not a lot of stops, with coaches who don't speak a lot. So if the practice are good, endurance becomes better only on the practices. Sometimes it's not necessary go outside to practice resistance and endurance. And 7th, physical height. we cannot do nothing with physical height because it's genetic factor. It's probably he grows up, it's probably not. So it not depends on us. But the rest of 6 parameters depending on us. So I want to explain to you now when I begin to finish my exposure. So there are 4 possibilities of talent management. So which depend on coaches, clubs, high schools, universities, colleges, coaches. So we have very, very good responsibility because we can discover a talent and same times we know to train a talent. We know how to train this player. So it's very good notice. It's very good news. Very good news. So you are fortunate, you are lucky. But sometimes you discover a talent. Oh, it's very good. Oh, it's a future NBA player. But do not know how to train this talent. Problems. Imagine, sometimes it's opposite. You don't detect. You have a talent on your hands, but talent appears itself and grows. But then after this, don't take the medal. Oh, the medal is the player, not yours, because you do not detect that talent. So it's not good too. And the worst thing, imagine if you do not detect a talent and same times the talent fails to flourish. So there are a lot of talents who don't arrive and disappear because of our responsibility or because of the context of that player don't help him to grow up like a player. Imagine it's a very good player, but he stay in a very bad team. So it's probably that in 3-4 years, this player don't have enough opposition to grow up and begins to don't improve. So it's very important that when a coach have a talent, let him go out to a club or maybe to another school or maybe a place where can develop his talent. Because if not, talents fail to flourish and we cannot permit this. And now I want to show you an example. Now we have a video. So we have a video of Luka Doncic when he have 14 years old, and look about attitude, face expression, look about concentration, his height, his muscle development, his offense actions, defense actions, technical level. And you will see a player that, yes, it's good, but sometimes it's probably we cannot imagine that he can arrive to the NBA maybe less than 5 years, arrive to the NBA, 5-6 years, imagine. So let's see the video. Here you have Luka Doncic. It's a child, it's kid. He's a little bit tall. Look his, for example, technical skill. It's a layup, it's a loose step, it's a floater. He steals the ball, take out the foul. He's playing against FC Barcelona, so it's very good team too. But look, he makes the things easy. When you see a player that makes the thing easy, it's probably you have a talent on your hands. Look his control, his emotional control. Okay, it's fault, but no problem, no problem. Continue on defense. Of course, his team leadership. Of course, he was the team leadership. He's a good friend of his teammates, same time. He's humble. Check his hand another time, talk with the coach. It's very, very, very important. It's very, very, very important. All the emotional part, sacrifice part, is very, very important. The rest sometimes depends on talent. So I finish here. Let me say to you, thank you to listen. And if I make you think and make change a little bit your mind about anything, I'm glad. I'm glad. And now I take outside the presentation. And if you have any questions, I will read it. I will read it in the chat.
Thank you, Coach Esteve. I appreciate your presentation. It was very informative and very well put together. I just want to, again, thank you for your time. Everybody, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. At the moment, I don't see any, but if y'all have any questions before we wrap up, give everybody a few moments, Coach.
Okay.
See if there's any questions. Coach Esteve, I don't see any questions at the moment, so we'll go ahead and wrap up. Do you have anything closing comments to add? Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry, Coach. You kind of lagged out there. I'm sorry if you said anything.
Okay.
All right, everyone. I don't see any questions. Again, Coach Esteve, I want to thank you for your time. I look forward to any more content and presentation you put out. So I'll definitely be looking forward to it. Everyone, I challenge you to take a second look and to review all of Coach's presentation again in the replay. And I hope to see y'all soon. Thank you again, Coach. Thank you for your time.
Thank you to you, same time. Thank you, and for the rest of coaches who stay here. Okay.
Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.